Lisa Lakaruba, 1805 Springtown Road. I see on the bills list there is a bill for Eurofins QC for water testing. I'm curious. I'm wondering if that is a good water testing business? Because I just want to bring to your attention that according to a online article that I found, the State Department of Environmental Protection fined Eurofins QC in Montgomery County $600,000 for falsifying and mishandling water test results. The DEP said it discovered possible violations in December 2016 while auditing EQC's whole effluent toxicity testing results. The audit found samples results appeared to be photocopies of previous data sheets with minor edits made. The audit found hundreds of cases of manipulated or falsified data, as well as hundreds of missing records, and cases where samples were mishandled according to the DEP.
Can I ask, was that, you said Montgomery County?
It was Montgomery County.
So that's Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
Okay.
March 5th, 2018. But we use them as our water sampling. So I'm wondering if we are paying them $250 on this bill list, and on previous bill lists there were the quality of the same. I'm hoping they're doing a good job, and I'm wondering if anybody else up there assists in the water testing of it. Or do they just do the sampling on their own? Because $600,000, I mean, there was a time here when the mayor was concerned about a DEP fine for the wells or something when Mr. Zekas was involved, and he said, wow, that's something, $14,000 or $12,000, whatever it was. But this place, this lab that is testing our water got fined for falsifying and mishandling water test results. So how does a town with so much concern for water and the softener and all the other issues that go with that, how are we using this same company? Now granted, it was Pennsylvania DEP, but it's the same company.
Do you have any other public comment?
No, not right now.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? Moving on to professionals and officials reports, I'll address some of the issues that came up from residents. I'll start by saying that we have used QC labs to do water testing for many, many years in the Borough of Alpha. The testing is conducted according to a set of standards that are promulgated by DEP and EPA. So certain things like bacteria testing is done monthly. Stephanie, if I say something wrong, then jump in. Nitrates are quarterly. They're only for wells that are in operation. So radioactive might be, I don't know, once a year. There's VOCs, there's disinfection byproducts. Each has its own schedule. Lead and copper has a different schedule. So all of that testing is performed by QC labs. They take the sample. The borough is generally not involved in it. The lead and copper testing, the sample is pulled by the resident. So they're given sample bottles. All of the other testing that's done, QC Labs goes in, they pull the sample, there's a chain of custody form that they fill out, the date, the time, they take the sample back to the lab, it gets tested, and those results are submitted electronically directly to NJDEP.
Eurofins is now QC Labs.
Well, I was getting to that.
Okay.
So QC Labs was purchased by Eurofins a couple of years ago. The borough has never been notified by NJDEP or any law enforcement agency that any of our test results were falsified or tampered or in any way invalid by anything that Eurofins may have done. Chris and I mean, you've never heard anything.
I've never gotten any notices.
Yeah, so this is the first I'm hearing about it. I don't know if these violations occurred before Eurofins purchased QC Labs. I don't know if it was Eurofins people and not QC Labs people. I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Stephanie, do you have anything to add on that whole topic?
Just like agreed that QC was basically the industry standard for laboratory testing in this area for a long time. They were bought out, and obviously there were some changes in personnel over the past couple of years. I'll let you continue, and I'll.
Okay. Okay. So I'm trying to, because I have notes scribbled all over here. There was a question about cleaning of the wet well.
Can I just?
Sure, go ahead.
With respect to that, the licensed operator has gotten pricing from other laboratories.
For testing?
Yes, for testing. So in response to that, yes. The change of personnel in Eurofins has, had the licensed operator seek pricing from other laboratories. So that's where we stand right now.
Okay.
And that is with the EPA. The lab that was the low quote was Garden State Labs, with the licensed operator had recommended government. So.
Okay. So it's all you have on testing, on water testing?
Yes, for water testing.
Okay. With respect to the wet well at the sewer pump station was cleaned last November?
Yes, at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's an involved process. All of the flow that comes into the wet well has to be stopped so that the workers can actually clean the wet well. And to do that, they have to plug the flow coming in and they have to bypass pump it. Either back it out and haul it someplace else or bypass pump it. So there is a cost for that. Once they stop the flow, they pump out all of the sludge and solids, yes. They wash down the walls and then they inspect the walls. So we had actually gotten a quote from them for $9,000, so the price that actually ended up was less because they only got paid per gallon for the amount of sludge that they actually pumped out of the wet well. So that's how that price came about.
I would add to that according to the license operator, the last time the wet well was cleaned was 2013, so it was cleaned in 13 and 17, and he said it's his practice in the past that he always cleaned wet wells once a year.
Yes, you should. I mean, you get rags collecting there by rags anyway, toilet paper, and there's disposable wipes sort of hang out in the well. The grease from people's food process gets caught in the wet well, and that all gets clogged in there and can clog the wells. So it's beneficial to the maintenance of your equipment to clean out the wet well.
Okay, so probably moving forward, we will clean the wet well once a year.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Eurofins computer, print plus copying wet wells. 200-foot list we talked about. The land use board agenda, Tom touched on. All right, so I'm going to make a statement about the whole LMR situation because there's been an awful lot said. When this was first brought to my attention in April of 2017, I immediately went to the zoning officer, and Mr. Duddy showed me the zoning permit that had been issued to Rob Cullentrail and LMR, I think in 2011, which was for 5 trucks on Lot 8. So when I said to him, well, he's got a lot more than 5 trucks, the comment that was made to me was, well, there is a land use board approval for a variance to store up to 40 vehicles. And Mr. Duddy said to me, I think a garbage truck is a vehicle, and I think if I cite him, I'm probably going to lose in court. So based upon that, I didn't think there was any additional action that the borough could take at that time. A notice of violation was issued, I believe, in June or July of 2017, at which point the applicant modified the application before the land use board. Mr. Duddy again said it's standard practice that when, as a zoning officer, he cites someone for a violation, if they appeal to the land use board, any enforcement action is held in abeyance until the land use board rules. That's why there was no enforcement action taken with respect to the notice of violation that was issued, because they were before the board. The other thing I'd like to say is, I had this conversation today with an attorney. When an applicant goes before the land use board, I'm certainly not an attorney, but and the application is active, I think the board really can only consider 3 things. They can consider the municipal land use law, the local borough ordinance with respect to zoning and permitted uses, and then the testimony that occurs at the board. This is sworn testimony by people who are qualified. I know that there were comments made about letters that were sent. I don't know that it's appropriate. I don't believe it's appropriate for the governing body to comment on an application that's pending before the land use board. That's their domain. So while it may have been frustrating for residents of Springtown Road to come to this governing body and seek relief with an application pending, I don't think it was appropriate for us to talk about the merits of what was going on there. With respect to the zoning, with respect to noise and other ordinance potential violations, yes, obviously those are issues that the code enforcement officer or the zoning officer could take action. But as far as is it a permitted use or will a variance be issued, I think that was a decision for the board. That wasn't a decision for this governing body. I'll also say that at the last land use board meeting, a statement was made that, and I'll say it was made by Mr. Frank, that he went to Mr. Duddy about the LMR situation, and Mr. Duddy made a comment, well, I will have to check with the mayor. I'm going to say right now on the record that I do not exercise veto control over any employee in the borough of Alpha. That's not the tax assessor, the tax collector, the zoning officer, the chief financial officer. They have licenses, they have to do their job, and I do not interfere in them doing their job. And I never told anyone not to enforce any notice of violation. So I will also say that comments were made about a letter and about I went to Mr. Colantrell. Yes, I did go to him because when I get an accusation that a business owner is threatening a member of the public and a resident, I take that very seriously. And I immediately went to him and I said, you have been accused of this. And he showed me an approximately 4 or 5 minute video of his interaction with Ms. Lockaruba. And in my opinion, based on the video that I saw, I did not believe that the allegations made by Ms. Lockaruba in that letter could be substantiated. I felt that the video refuted the allegations. So the idea that I'm taking sides in something, no. And I said this before. If someone is threatening a member of the public, engaging in illegal activity, then I'd like to address it, and I thought that I did. So I think that's about all I have. I don't know, does anybody else know of any other issues that were brought up that we haven't addressed?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just one clarification. The applicant that came before the land use board was John Maxon, not Ellen Marr. Ellen Marr was only the tenant. So if you wanted to change anything on that property, you have to go to the owner, and the owner has to make the change. So just when you're talking about that, it's the owner that has that.
Right. Louis, was there anything that you felt we haven't addressed, comments made by the public?
Well,
Questions?
indirectly, I wanted to bring up in front of this board, under maybe old business or new business, but I would like to rescind the permission that the borough gave them for changing items from one truck to another on that site. If all indication is that they're moving out except for the trucks that are still there, I don't think it's necessary to have a previously given permission. This is a permission that I think was problematic after all these issues were brought to this council, and because of the status quo with legal issues with the land use board in the application, I believe it wasn't right for that time to ask this council if they would rescind that. So I'm asking now if anyone else would support me on that.
I'd have to look at it and review it. I mean, I know we approved it, I'm just not sure exactly what it said, but if we can get a copy of it, we'll certainly possibly address it next meeting, but I'd like some time to actually review
That's
the
fair.
resolution.
We'll put it in front of the attorney if he can review it, make sure the resolution is good.
All right, so the only comment I'll make is I spoke to 3 different individuals at NJDEP with respect to this exemption, and they said that this carve-out in the regulations is specifically to allow smaller vehicles to be used on narrow streets to collect garbage and recyclables. That's the purpose. And then the smaller vehicle is then allowed to make a transfer generally on the street from the smaller vehicle to the larger vehicle. This is a specific exemption that's in the regulations that's permissible. And that's why that was granted to LMR. The other thing I would say is I'd rather have smaller vehicles riding around my streets picking up garbage than larger vehicles. I know that we have a mason dump that plows alleys because we deem dump trucks, our large dump trucks, to be too large to go down, to navigate down some alleys. And I think it's the same situation. There is garbage collection and recycling collection on some alleys, and I think if they take a smaller vehicle down there, it probably does less damage to the roads. So that's kind of the rationale for why the exemption was.
Mayor, I'm not in an alley, but I can tell you I have 4 times the amount of recyclables as garbage, so I can't see smaller trucks doing the job that a big packer truck needs to do. So maybe in certain situations they have to bring a smaller truck down a certain alley, but definitely not on my street.
Okay. The last comment that I want to make, there was a comment made about why we were addressing issues to Ms. Pesaresi, and I thought I said at the outset that as a quasi-member of the Alpha political realm here, that is to say AYAA is an organization that's affiliated with the borough, that I felt that interaction between the governing body and AYAA was appropriate. If the fire company came here and wanted to have dialogue, we would certainly have that dialogue. So I think there's a different status for a resident making a statement during public comment and someone representing an organization that the borough governing body supports. So that's why we had that interaction with Ms. Pesaresi. So I'll shut up and move on. Any questions for the mayor's office?
Yeah, I just have one. When is our water moratorium over? You know what I'm talking about that?
It's over when we have it lifted by DEP. Stephanie, you want to talk about that during your report a little more?
Yes.
Quick question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Someone said that you might have a contact with the State Department of Transportation regarding the grate at the end of 7th Avenue that seems to be really falling apart, and I think it's becoming a public nuisance. Do you have a contact for us?
I did. I don't know if I have his number. Basically, what I had done before was just I went down to the West Portal yard, which is on 173, just past 78. It's on the right-hand
Where the big
side.
salt shed is?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I think I'll do that.
Can you have Frank take a look at that? So we have a trench grate at the intersection of 122 and 7th Avenue, and it's deteriorated.
Owned by the state.
Yeah, it's owned by the state, obviously. It's part of their drainage system on State Highway 122. Any other questions? So no one here from the police department, no one here from the fire department, no one here from the emergency squad. Mr. Pantuso, I think I see you sitting back there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Office of Emergency Management.
I only have a couple things. First one is the CERT training began last Thursday. We had 7 participants, and there's going to be an additional 2 joining in this week. The other thing is, I would like permission to have Donna put a link on the Borough website for it's a state organization. It's called Register Ready. What it is, it's for disabled people, elderly people who have special needs in the event of a major catastrophe like a hurricane, flood, things like that. And the emergency management would be notified of these people and these residents in our town. And it's very easy for them to sign on. It would just be a matter of us having a link on our website that they can go on and have all their information. I think it'd be a positive thing.
Okay.
And the third thing is, we're still working, Councilman Cease, Tom Fay, and myself, on the National Night Out that's planned for August 7th. We haven't decided yet whether we're going to have it at the park or at the firehouse, but I have a lot of participants already. The Pittsburgh Police, the fire department, the 911 center. So I'll be looking for volunteers, once it gets closer.
When? What's the date on that again?
August the 7th. It's the first Tuesday of August each year.
Okay. I'll be out of town, so. Anything else, Todd?
No, that's it.
Any questions for OEM?
Yes, tell the audience and the council again, the CERT training started last week. It runs every Thursday except for the first Thursday in May.
There's a couple Thursdays we won't have it because of a conflict with the scheduling for the county OEM.
And it starts here except for next week.
Yeah, each training session is going to be held here at the Borough Hall in this room.
What time?
From 6:30 p.m. to 8:30. With the exception of this Thursday, it will be held at the Warren County Fire Academy,
And
which is
we're-
located behind the Warren County Road Tech, behind the college. It's the 911 center.
Councilman Sin and myself are participating, and I'm looking forward to trying to put up little fires.
Right.
So we're getting-
Yeah, this week's instruction is going to be on the use of fire extinguishers. So even if somebody was interested in taking the training, but didn't want to be part of the CERT team, that's fine. Because it's worthwhile training just for everyday occurrences that could, aid your residents.
Okay.
There's basic first aid, like I just mentioned, fire extinguisher use, disaster preparedness, how to prepare, not only helping other people, but to prepare yourself in the event of a major disaster.
And we'll learn more as we go along.
It's a great class.
Thanks for hosting me.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Pantuso? Thank you, Todd. Before we go on, I had missed some things with executive session, so I'd like to request 15 minutes in executive session for contractual with respect to the 2018 water improvement project, 5 minutes in executive session for contractual for the 2016 water improvement project, 10 minutes in executive session for contractual for the Frey Street water treatment plant. And Stephanie will be asking you to participate in those. 10 minutes in executive session for contractual for water tower leases. And did I ask for that? 10 minutes in executive session for contractual litigation.
Mayor Lamb, I'd like to interject about the water tower. Someone called me up from one of the leaseholders, and I directed them to contact the acting municipal clerk on that issue. So I don't know if that's the same one or not.
I don't know, I don't think so. Okay. All right, so moving on then to Attorney Mr. Troxel.
Thanks, Mayor. I need 5 minutes contractual lease, 5 minutes contractual professional, 5 minutes litigation, and 5 minutes personal.
All right, any questions for the attorney? Seeing none, moving on. Engineer, Ms. Cuthbert.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to highlight on some of the projects that we are working on. The DOT, the local freight infrastructure fund applications that we submitted, we hear that they should be making a determination in May, so hopefully we'll hear about those applications shortly. The 2018 water utility improvement project, I have discussed the schedule with Ken Bauer. The notice to proceed will be issued in the beginning of May, which is in about a week, so that we can get all of the permit applications in place, and coordinate with Cohacon.
Excuse me, it says April 30 on the sheet.
I rounded it up.
All right.
So next week, which is May 1st. Some of the work is in Cohacon, so we're coordinating with them to get their permit and post the escrow for that. The treatment plant, we did have a meeting on site today. The intent of the meeting was to sequence the new blower and the new caustic pumps. That went well. That is ready. So the last bit of work that we need to do is to change out the resin for the degasifier, or the packing material, I should say. That packing material is being shipped. It should be in to the Borough at the end of next week. We are still working on getting quotes for one more contractor to remove the existing packing material from the gasifier and replace it. And then once we do that, we can start up the plant and get that online. Councilman Pettinelli, you asked about firm capacity. So we have petitioned for DEP for firm capacity. We believe that with the water improvements that have been made, getting the second well online, connecting Purcell Street well to Frey Street treatment plant, and putting in all the redundant features that we've been working on with the plant, that the borough does have firm capacity. Of course, that approval has to be official from the DEP. So we petitioned them. They did reach out to me and said that they are willing to meet with the borough and our office to discuss the firm capacity once we certify that the plant is online. So hopefully within a couple of weeks we can do that and then set up a meeting with the DEP to sit and meet with them and talk about firm capacity. A couple of the sanitary projects to touch on. The sanitary improvements on South Boulevard are complete, so we're just doing a punch list of that work to give to the contractor, and then we can close out that project. And we are still working with the QPA to get quotes for the SCADA system at the pump station. If there's any questions on any of the other projects?
Yes. Degasifier. We just changed the median degasifier here a couple of years ago,
Yes.
and it hasn't been running. Why are we doing it again?
It is fouled. There was some particles that got entrapped in the packing material, which we cannot just disinfect and get out. So the licensed operator felt that the best approach would be to remove all of the packing material, re-disinfect everything, and then put in new packing material.
Well, how did it get clogged if it wasn't running?
We think that when the roof was replaced, that the ductwork was never penetrated through the roof, and it just was taking in air. Things were falling into the ductwork when it was sitting up in the attic, the roof rafters. Of course, that's just an assumption, but since it wasn't extended to the roof line, there wasn't a bug screen on it, particles could fall into the ductwork, so that's how we think that the media got fouled.
Well, there's nothing on the inside the roof, that it was outside, I understand, but something doesn't sound right.
Things get into the roof.
Could have been done during the construction of the roof?
There's been a lot of ripping and tearing in that building in the last 4 years.
It's hard to say, but we can't just disinfect the packing material.
I personally found something at Purcell Street, which we discussed needed to be changed to bring things up to code, that had been sitting there for years, so we did it, we brought it up to code.
Right.
You know.
The good thing is that the packing material isn't a huge cost, unfortunately, it's just more time.
2 more weeks.
The labor is more than the cost of
You're
the
right,
pack.
it is, yeah.
Just to clarify, so the one contractor that was out there today said basically it's a 1 to 2 day process.
Right. Yeah, they're little plastic balls for those that don't know, and you basically suck those out, clean out the interior of the degasifier, disinfect it, put the new balls back in, and you're ready to go.
2 more questions. Sanitary projects number 2, the meter vault installation, any
Yes.
update on that?
Yes, so we have the outline for getting the quotes. I will be talking with ES2, who is the contractor that did the cluster pumps. They actually can give the information for the meter so we can put it in the meter vault. So I'll be reaching out to them, if not this week, next week.
Thank you. And lastly, the discussion we had earlier today about just having a lot more redundancy and control on our system. It'd be a good idea to do a dial-up notification on a SCADA system, especially when it comes to the water tower levels, so that we hit a certain set point and it gets down that low, there would be a notice, just in case we want to check it out, in case we have another meeting break.
As we discussed, now that you have a SCADA system in the water plant, there's add-on features that once you have that main panel in, you can start putting in additional features as you start operating the system and see what works best for you. And the notification, you can monitor the tank levels. It wouldn't be visual that somebody has to go in and look, but you can have a dial up so that if you start seeing the tank levels drop, somebody gets notified right away.